Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Romano here at the Hurricane Outlook discussion for May 25th, 2020, recorded around 12:55 p.m. Eastern Time. While taking a look here at the updated sea surface temperature anomalies, these were last updated as of yesterday, May 24th. Again, really watching how the El Nino situation is quickly fading in the Nino 3.4 region. This is basically where we're typically looking for any sort of El Nino or La Nina. Basically, the ENSO state of conditions is in the Nino 3.4 regions. Those areas have continuously cooled off throughout the last several weeks, and we've seen now temperatures fall to almost negative 1.5 to almost a full 2 degrees Celsius below the long-term average across the Nino 3.4 region. And simultaneously across the Atlantic Main Development Region, we are once again seeing a warming in the tropical Atlantic in the MDR region. Still this weird subtropical AMO, positive AMO phase 2, but we are transitioning likely into a transition between a phase 2 and a phase 1, which would warm up the MDR even more. Again, right now, we're mainly focused on how warm this area is. Again, it's not super warm, but it is about a half a degree to, in some cases, a full degree Celsius above the long-term average. Again, that doesn't really seem like a lot, but across a vast area and in the realm of physics and microphysics and everything else, that adds a very substantial amount of energy in the atmosphere across the MDR. So again, this area is warming up fairly nicely. The Caribbean is right at or just slightly above the long-term average, and the same with the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico now is almost fully supportive of, at least conditionally sea surface temperature-wise, of tropical cyclones. If we take a look here, this is a different methodology. This is the Reynolds method updated on May the 23rd. But you do notice much of the same thing here, that most of the MDR is right at where it should be or just slightly above the long-term average. This is our weird AMO phase 2 kind of combined with a phase 1 AMO. It's a weird mix between the both, but basically for layman's terms, the subtropical Atlantic through just about east of about 50 and generally south of about 30 is generally warmer than it should be for this time of the year. And that is connected to a AMO phase 2 pattern, and also the MDR is slightly warmer than it should be for this time of the year, connected with a more AMO phase 1 type deal. So there's a transitional mode between a phase 2 and a phase 1. We might see a transition into a phase 1, which again might or would suggest a warming of the MDR by a fairly good margin, but again, it's really going to be determinant on how the sea surface temperatures change over the next few weeks and months. Again, if we transition into a phase 1, that would favor the MDR to warm up quite substantially more than it has right now, or if it stays in this relatively weird transitional mode between a phase 1 and phase 2 AMO. Now, taking a look here at the upper ocean heat content numbers, this is updated as of yesterday. See if they have it updated for today. No, they don't. Okay, so updated as of yesterday, this is the upper ocean heat content numbers. The higher you go up on this scale here towards where you're starting to get into the greens and yellows, that is generally where you have the warmer water at depth. And then the bluish is where you have a little bit. And again, the further less you go down on the scale to the dark blues, that means virtually very little upper ocean heat content. But you do notice, again, generally west of about 50 degrees west here, and generally south of about 30 north, right in this area is where we have the highest upper ocean heat content right now. Again, in the Caribbean, in the Gulf of Mexico, and even stretching up now in through portions of the Gulf Stream in the Bahamas and near the Lesser Antilles as well. So again, generally the pattern is setting up as such that a more favorable window of opportunity for any sort of development in the tropics or subtropics is coming up. And again, this is going to start playing a matter when we start talking about systems that are forming or getting ready to form, especially right now in the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean, where there is a lot of upper ocean heat content, and the waters are generally warmer than they should be for this time of the year. And just taking a real quick look, this is the CDAS methodology. This is from tropicaltidbits.com, by the way. For the Nino 3.4 region, which once again is this area roughly in through about here, we're taking a look at the El Nino conditions or the state of the ENSO. Basically, this is just continuing to fall off a cliff and has been over the last several weeks, and now almost full 2 months is heading in now towards this gradual decline of the El Nino. Again, we are heading, again, just for reference, 0.5 is actually the La Nina threshold from the Climate Prediction Center, but we are heading down towards a La Nina. Now, just because it might hit, zero point 0.5 Celsius below, doesn't mean it's automatically an El Nino. Again, you have to sustain, or La Nina, sorry, you have to sustain that environment at least consistently for about 2 to 3 months before it's actually considered. And again, the environment does lag behind. So just because that there's this considerable cooling off right now that in theory should lower the wind shear across this region, across the MDR and Caribbean. Now, we have seen significantly lower wind shear. But again, the environment still takes some time, and we're not quite there yet, although we are almost at June 1st. We're 7 days away as of today. Next Monday is actually June 1st, so when we do the hurricane outlook and discussion next Monday, it will be the start of the official hurricane season. But the environment does lag behind, and that's one thing to keep in mind, is just because right now that there's this fairly significant cooling, there's still going to be some wind shear because of the warmer almost El Nino state that we had not that long ago, roughly about 4 or 5 months ago. The environment takes some time and it does lag behind a little bit, but again, generally we will have and do have lower than normal wind shear values across the Caribbean and MDR regions. Now, taking a look here at the actual sea surface temperature anomaly, or sea surface temperatures rather, this is the CDAS methodology coming from tropicaltidbits.com. You do notice that, again, most of the area has seen a fairly good warming over the last really several weeks. Again, generally our more favorable window right now is west of 50 degrees and south of 30 degrees north. That is where sea surface temperatures are generally supportive across this region for tropical cyclones. And you do notice that, even in the area that Arthur did form, again, down here and kind of tracked up here, the sea surface temperatures are warmer now in the Gulf Stream, so it is that time of the year where the pattern is starting to flip. Conditions are generally getting more and more favorable as we head and approach towards the 7-day mark and under a week left to go before the Atlantic hurricane season begins. We are already watching something out here in the Eastern Pacific. We'll actually touch that here in just a minute, but we're really watching over the next coming weeks. We're really watching the Eastern Pacific and the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico over the next few weeks or so. Now, taking a look here, this is from the College DuPage website. This is taking a look at the visible GOES 16 satellite here. You do notice that over Florida right now, there is a fairly decent tropical wave, a fairly healthy tropical wave that is bringing a ton of rainfall, excessive rainfall to the Florida East Coast. If you take a look here at the radar, you actually do notice there is a ton of precipitation that has fallen across most of the Florida coastline here, the east central Florida coastline, down all the way through portions of Orlando that have seen almost about an inch of rain today. And again, this whole area could see an upwards of about 6 to 10 inches of rain over the next coming day or so. This is gradually expected as a tropical wave to eventually split off into 2 sections, and it basically already has. We do have one little area of vorticity that is out in the Gulf of Mexico right now, centered right about here. That is expected to gradually drift inland over the next coming days. Again, this is not expected to develop into anything here. We are also watching an area of vorticity and spin off the Florida East Coast, and if we take a look here at that, we are watching this whole general area with our little vorticity band right there, but we are watching for maybe a concentrated area of vorticity to develop off the Florida East Coast. The only problem with that, again, we do have the strong shear numbers, about 30 to 50 knots in some areas, that will generally preclude any sort of tropical cyclone development and should not really allow for anything to get going across this area. But again, it is almost the arrival of the hurricane season. We do have to continue to watch. Again, nonetheless, there is going to be some very significant rainfall numbers for the Space Coast and Treasure Coast, all the way down through near Miami. There was a confirmed EF0 tornado down near Miami last night. So again, it is very important to understand that just because this is not a hurricane or a tropical storm or even a tropical depression for that matter, it can bring copious amounts of rainfall. And again, this is going to provide and set up for a very wet Memorial Day, stretching throughout really the rest of today across East Central Florida, South Florida, and lasting in through tomorrow. There is, about a 70 to 100% chance of rainfall across East Central Florida for today and tomorrow. Even a chance for tornadoes. There is a marginal risk for severe weather across the Space Coast. Heading into near Clewiston, Lake Okeechobee, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami regions. Could see some stronger thunderstorms develop across this area and actually produce some isolated tornadoes or waterspouts, especially in the coastal areas. And we're already seeing that there is some evidence of circulation. Actually, there's a pretty good circulation right there, and if we just take a quick look at that, you do notice that there is a pretty decent circulation actually right off the coast here, and that should generally be moving. That's going to actually come pretty close to land here near Cape Canaveral. So again, for those folks there, the chance for tornadoes is certainly going to be prevalent today, and some isolated waterspouts in this rain band right here. There's more rain right now, lighter rain, but there should be more rain that will develop later throughout the day today that will continue to spiral around and impact portions of East Central Florida and the Orlando metro throughout today. Now, taking a look here at the Eastern Pacific, the National Hurricane Center, as of this morning, did put out an update with a 40%, an area of disturbance with a 40% chance of development over the next coming days. Again, this is not going to really move much out to the east here. This is actually going to be a problem potentially to land over the next several days for those folks in Central America. And we talked about this in our last few updates, the Central American gyre that's going to be setting up here. And this is what's going to happen. We do have now the Hurricane Center that is on board with that. And again, this serves as a good reminder that this is the Eastern Pacific hurricane season that started back on May the 15th. And, the Atlantic Basin is only 7 days away next Monday. So again, this is going to be a problem for land. And, even if this doesn't go on to develop, there's expected to be a very significant rainfall, copious amounts of rainfall over Central America. As a result of the Central American gyre, again, could set up for some, flash flooding, mudslides, that type of deal across that area. And it doesn't really help if you get a tropical system to develop in there either. Now, taking a look here at the models, this is the 12Z GFS forecast valid as of 1 o'clock this afternoon, so now just passing about 7 minutes ago. You notice here we stretch it out to about 8 o'clock tonight. Here's this little area of vorticity off the Florida East Coast. Again, that tries to get it established here over the next 18 hours. The GFS is showing an area of vorticity concentrating right off the Florida East Coast, and again, that's going to bring some copious amounts of rainfall to portions of the Florida East Coast today. Melbourne, Miami, generally northward. And over the next 48 hours, that's going to kind of meander around and drift off to the north. Not really expected to develop into much, but we do have to pay attention. Again, this is expected to bring copious amounts of rainfall to the Florida East Coast, and eventually could bring some rainfall across portions of the low country of South Carolina, maybe up into the Piedmont area. And there also could be some rain for southeastern Georgia as a result of this. And I wanted to start now paying attention to what's going to happen here over the next coming days. Again, we are watching this disturbance in the Eastern Pacific that is expected to develop. And you do notice here just about beyond the 5-day mark at hour 126, we'll back that up actually to the 5-day mark, this Central American gyre that's going to be setting up across this region, and also what could be a developing tropical system out there in the Eastern Pacific Basin. And some of that energy is going to get caught up in the Central American gyre and might try to spin up something in the Caribbean. The GFS now has been forecasting this fairly consistently, and it's coming into our window of opportunity that the model guidance is becoming a little bit more reliable. And even the European model yesterday did show something in the Bay of Campeche down there. So it is very important to understand that, again, this is a little more than 5 days out. This is actually on June the 1st at about 7 o'clock in the morning on June the 1st. But again, there is the potential for something to potentially develop in the Eastern Pacific that might carry some of its energy over into the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, or the Bay of Campeche by June 1st, or by sometime there, shortly there or before then. we could see some development chances begin to rise across the region. And the GFS is actually trying to spin up two areas of vorticity. One very small area of vorticity in the southern Caribbean, and also an area right off of Belize and the Yucatan Peninsula, just directly towards the south of the Yucatan Peninsula and the city of Belize. So again, this is going to be something that we're going to keep in mind here. And if we take a look here at the European model, this is forecast out for about the next 24 hours. Again, here's our little area of vorticity right here on or just along the Florida coastline. That generally splits off to two areas of vorticity, one here approaching the Carolina coastline, the South Carolina coastline, and one here approaching the Big Bend of Florida. None of these are really expected to develop, but we'll just have to kind of keep, a watchful eye on things. And this is the European model. Now, this is forecast out to hour 192, but again, the same general concept is the same here, that the Central American gyre is going to be setting up, likely favoring the Eastern Pacific for the first time, and then we could be seeing something forming out of that energy either in the Bay of Campeche or the Caribbean. But again, the details are still a little too shaky right now. It is still a little too far out to actually be determinant on who's going to get the better shot for development. But right now, the Eastern Pacific does seem to be winning out on that. This could be a threat to land, so again, we are going to be continuing to keep a watchful eye on that. And of course, we will have another video forecast update out by tomorrow afternoon. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Again, stay safe, everyone, and stay dry. And I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I will see you guys tomorrow afternoon. Stay safe, everyone.